Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first masterclass organized by Dhaka International Mobile Film Festival 2021. I'm Saida Sadia Mehzabin, your moderator for this today's session. When the world is carried away with the new trend OTT platform, where sitting at home one can access to a greater selection of films, then why do we need online film festivals? Because film festivals aren't about showcasing films. It has greater objectives to achieve. Besides exposing films to a new audiences, it is undoubtedly a platform for exchanging ideas, building networks, patronizing new talents, ensuring community engagement, and most importantly, it is a learning platform. Keeping those thoughts in mind, Dhaka International Mobile Film Festival always tries to meet those promises. This year, we are proud to introduce writer-director Professor Stephen Quinn. This Norwegian journalist is the author of 26 printed books, 4 digital books. In his 2 decades-long career as a journalist, he has taught motor skills to journalists in 19 countries and has given almost 200 presentations on the future of journalism in 38 countries. He believes that phones give us huge power to be creative, but remember, it is only a tool. The key to success is training, education combined with practice. His thought echoed with Paul Branshaw's once said, technology is just a strategy, not it's it's technology is not a strategy, it is a tool. Let me welcome Dr. Stephen Queen to unleash your creativity with smartphone. Welcome,
Ah,
sir.
thank you. I'm coming to you from my flat, my home in Brighton in the UK. Um, so I would say good afternoon, but for you it's good evening.
Yes.
Um, when I was a young child, I used to watch a TV series called The Two Ronnies, and they always began with good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, because they're being shown all around the world. So one of those time frames is appropriate for us today. So thank you for this opportunity. I'll get straight in. I'm going to share my screen and we will begin with our presentation. All right. So I've subtitled this creative filming with a smartphone because there are many ways to be creative with a smartphone, with a mobile phone. I don't have time to go through all of them, so I'm only going to focus on the filming part of the process. Oops. So, very quick summary today. I maintain that having a smartphone allows for increased creativity, as Saida said, provided you are properly trained. I'm going to focus on creative filming. I'm going to use examples from my own videos, so I apologize if these are boring. But I guess I'm trying to make the point that I am a practitioner as much as I'm a teacher and a working journalist. I'd like you to understand that the basics still apply to everything I talk about. So steady camera, clear audio, a good storyline. These basics apply regardless of what I'm talking about. My context will be journalism because I've been a journalist for 45 years this month. And even though I'm a professor of mobile journalism in Norway, all opinions from today are my own. So very quickly, I spent 20 years as a journalist in 5 countries. I then became a university professor for 15 years. I worked as a consultant with the World Association of Newspapers, with the Newsplex in America, and a company called Innovation International, which has been described as the best media consulting company in the world. I returned to journalism in Hong Kong with the South China Morning Post in 2011. And in late 2013, I moved to the UK, where I run this company called Mojo Media Insights, which is a consulting company about mobile phones. And I'm a part-time 0.6 professor at Christiania University in Oslo. As you've noted, I've published 30 books. I've given, I don't know how many videos I've made, but at least 1,000. And I've given lots of presentations, and I've trained Mojos in 20 countries in recent years. So we begin with the definition. So Mojo is Mo as in mobile phone, and also as in mobile, or having mobility, and Joe as in journalism. For me, Mojo means everything. Every part of the video is done with the smartphone and a few relatively cheap, inexpensive apps. So the filming, the editing, the narration, the music, special effects, the captions, the headlines, and the delivery are all coming from the phone. No laptops involved, no transferring video from the phone to a computer for editing. It's all done on the phone. I call that full or complete Mojo. And with training, it's possible to make a broadcast quality video in less than a day. I'll show you my shortest ever movie in a little while, which took me between pressing the record button in the field and delivering it to a website, took 2.5 minutes. That's my best so far. 2.5, more than 2 million. What's that number represent? It's the hours of video that go online every day. We don't really know how many. We know it's at least 2 million, probably a lot more. So how do you make your video stand out, given there's so much competition? Well, I'm going to suggest that it's quality that stands out. By quality, I mean strong images when you film, quality audio when you record the audio, creative editing. In fact, editing creates quality in all media when you think about it. If you're a still photographer, your photo editor for your magazine improves the quality of your image through editing. If you're a text or a print reporter, your copy editor, your sub-editor improves the quality of your text through editing. So I suggest that editing is a very, very powerful way to improve quality. And on top of that, we have this something extra, this intangible thing, this difficult to define thing called creativity. And I'm going to suggest to you that a quality product combines all of those three items. Which leads to the question, what is creativity? Would you all please mute your, I'm getting some feedback at this end. Thank you. So what is creativity? So we need to go sideways slightly for a few minutes to talk about how your brain works. And I'm confident that everybody listening has a brain. Some very basic brain facts. It weighs about 2% of your body weight, but needs at least 20% of the oxygen you absorb. So ipso facto, good breathing and good air is important. In the early 1960s, an American doctor called Paul MacLean came up with what he called the triune brain, the fact that we humans actually have 3 brains. The reptilian brain, based around survival, the mammalian brain, which is very much to do with memory, and the neo-mammalian or the neocortex brain, which is the new brain, the thinking brain. And so we have 2 hemispheres. They're about the size of your clenched fist. And they are quite distinct. The 2 hemispheres are separate items joined only at around the area where your wrist would be if you hold your fists together, a very thin sheath of nerves called the corpus callosum. In men, it's about 5 millimeters thick. In women, it's about 7, thereby proving that women are much better at many, many brain tasks. A man called Tony Buzan, with whom I worked in the 1980s, he sadly died last year. He is the inventor of a concept called the mind maps, and he's considered a world authority on creativity. He took the work of MacLean and translated into the notion that different parts of the brain are responsible for different functions. So the left brain is very analytical, the right brain is more, what's the word? It is gestaltish, it is based around things like intuition, imagery, very much imagery. So true creativity only really occurs. Sorry, I'm hearing people talking again in the background. If you would mute again, please. True creativity is, first of all, so much easier when you are relaxed. There's a great story about the Greek philosopher Archimedes, who was trying to discover some important concepts, and the story goes that he ran naked down the streets of Athens screaming "Eureka," which in Greek means "I've got the answer, I've discovered it." And what we need to appreciate is the reason he came up with this brilliant idea was he was relaxed. Many people take showers or baths to feel relaxed, or other people have massages. But the issue is about the brain seems to work better when we are relaxed. We are more creative when we are relaxed. How do we get relaxed? Well, some journalists use alcohol, not recommended. One good way is to increase the amount of oxygen to your brain through a technique called sushi breathing. Essentially, it involves spending more time on the exhale than the inhale. So you might inhale for, say, to the count of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then when you exhale, make sure you go beyond 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Other ways to relax include meditation, massage, mindfulness. It's best to avoid stimulants like coffee, tea, and especially alcohol. And the one I hate is what I call heavy metal pollution of the brain, which is loud rock music. The kind of music that the brain likes is called Baroque music, which beats at roughly 60 beats per minute. The other way to ensure creativity is when you get your corpus callosum working. In other words, sorry, something's come up on my screen telling me the meeting is being recorded, and I can't get rid of the message. So if someone could remove that, please, it would be very, very useful, because I can't see my screen. So what we need, and the screen has frozen. This meeting is being recorded. Can we get rid of that, please? Because I can't go anywhere. Hello? Can we lose the notification on the screen that this meeting is being recorded?
It has been paused. I think now you can access your screen again.
Okay,
sorry for the disturbance. Yep.
Yeah, my screen is just frozen because of that. I can't do anything. Yeah, nothing's happening. So when that item came up, I don't know how to leave this now, because everything has frozen.
Do you see the button still there, the banner?
Yes, it's still there, but my cursor has gone and the screen has frozen. So it looks as though that notification has caused the screen to freeze, and I've got no control over it.
Can you restart your presentation? Can you turn it off and on?
Yeah, I'm going to have
Yes,
to turn
I'm very extremely sorry for this. And here, I would like to request everyone, please mute. Please don't turn on your microphone or your camera because it's creating disturbance. Please focus on the class. And if you have any questions, please write it down on the chat box. Our volunteers are there. We are here to ask your question. Once the session is done, we'll ask the question to the session team. I think Professor is trying to reconnect, so we need to be patient. The session is not over because our professor, he somehow got disconnected and now he's trying to rejoin our class. And in between, please, if you have any queries and any questions, please write it down in the chat box. And I would please request you to please turn off your camera and mute your button so that we can continue doing this class uninterrupted way. Thank you. Sir, please carry on. Unmute, please. Yes. Yes. Okay.
Right. Okay. We're almost back to where we started.
Yes, here we go.
Right. Okay. To continue. So creativity works best when, sorry, I've lost my cursor again. Okay. So when this corpus callosum is working, how do we connect our hemispheres? The best and simplest way is to use what is called brain gym. The technical term or fancy term for it is educational kinesiology. And the principle is that we need to conduct exercises, do exercises that cross the midpoint of our brain. And one way to test that your hemispheres are connected is to, and I hope, I'm assuming you can see me. I've lost the capacity to, I've got no cursor, I'm afraid. I don't know if you can see me, but there is a technique where you hold out your hands like this, thumb and little finger, and then you swap. If you can do that quickly, it's a sign that your hemispheres are well connected. Now, screen frozen again. I'm really sorry, I don't know what's going on. This has never happened before. The screen has frozen. Okay. So far I've been doing a lot of talking, and I apologize. So that's one of the downsides of Zoom. As Benjamin Franklin said, tell me and I forget, teach me and I might remember, involve me and I learn. So normally when I run a class, it's very much doing exercises. We just don't have time in this, so you have to listen to my voice. Part of becoming very good at something is practicing. Notice I use the verb practice. And the great photographer Platon once said, you must master technique to the point you will completely integrate it, forgetting it like you don't think about breathing. Then you're able to focus on the creative part, the story. The first piece of advice I give is when you're filming with the edit process in mind. And the nice thing about being a mojo, of course, is that most mojos are doing their own editing. Most mojos tend to be single operators. So you are filming and then you are editing. So when you shoot, try to take footage that will make it easier for you when you come to edit. Take advantage of the smartphone size. Gives you the chance, because it's small and compact, You can put it on a selfie stick. You can put it on a skateboard. You can get on the floor to film people's feet. You can get lots of close-ups. And one of the things about that I'll talk about is the intimacy of smartphone filming. You're getting in close, lots of close-ups. There are lots of different styles of mojo. One of the things about traditional television, if you've been working in television news, you know there is a language of television news. There's a way of doing a TV package with a newsreader doing an introduction, and then we know the language of the television news package. With Mojo, you're making it up as you go along. There are many different styles of Mojo. For example, and this is the story I told you, mentioned early. I'm getting myself flustered because of the technology problems. One of the things I mentioned earlier is that I did a news story, a news package in 2.5 minutes. It's about an attempt by a magician to set a world record for the most number of costume changes in 1 minute. And now the screen is frozen again, and I can't. I don't know what's going on. I can't lose.
Good evening. We have to take care of our gates very carefully.
I can't seem to lose the screen.
It seems we are not properly.
Sir, can you please unmute? It has been mute somehow.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm really sorry. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, I'll resume my presentation. I'll just have to use fewer video examples. So that example of the magician was a story that through planning, I knew what the story was. I set up the camera. I recorded the 1 minute of video for the attempt at the world record. I added a bit of footage at the end of the prize being given and was able to have it on the web within about 2.5 minutes of finishing my editing. That's the advantage of planning. It's one of the things you really need to do a lot of time with Mojo. I'm not sure how well I can show some of these because every time I show some on the web, it seems to freeze. But let's see if I can get it. So this is an example of a story done just on the spot. I happened to be in a park in Beijing. I saw this man and I filmed him and I used some captions to explain the story. Another way of telling a story is using natural sound only. So here's an example from the Grand Prix.
So we can't see it. I think somehow the sharing screen is not working. So every time you see my face is popping up, that means there is something.
I'm sorry, can you
yes,
hear me okay?
We can hear you, yes. We can hear you loud and clear.
Right.
But I think the sharing screen is not working somehow.
I'm sorry, say again?
We couldn't see those videos because I think I think the screen share option it's not working or it's off. Can you please check again?
Okay. Well, there's the screen share is happening.
Yes, now it's fine. Yes, it has started again. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
The joys of technology. So the example of using natural sound, I'll show it again and I'll So the thing about that was a very noisy event. So it meant that the only way to tell the story was using the subtitles. Another way of telling stories is interviewing somebody and using their voice, the voice of the interviewee, and using that as the narrator. So that's another example of how you can tell a story.
One of the stories more famous here in the city, it's about the famous nun that lived here in the convent. She was Mariana.
Okay. Another way of telling a story is using music as a theme or motif throughout the video. And most of these I'll only show you a few seconds of each story to save time. And of course, you can make short documentaries using a mobile phone as well. This is a video from about sustainable wine growing in South Africa.
Villiera Estate in Stellenbosch has returned more than 220 hectares to its original state. Land that used to look like this now includes thousands of native trees and vegetation. Former clay pits have been turned into lakes.
So my point in telling you so far is to say that there's no formula way of doing Mojo. There are lots and lots of ways of doing Mojo. And you have to make a choice based on the scenario of where you are, because you're in the field somewhere. You have to make a decision as to how best to tell the story. And I've given you some examples of possible ways of telling stories. For the rest of the session, I'm going to talk about creative filming, how to be more creative when you film with your smartphone. One way is to shoot through frames. By frames, I mean window frames, the vertical posts of a fence, groups of trees, and also think about frames within frames. So here's an example from a story I did from about the world's most northerly vineyard in the world, in fact. So I'll scrub through to show you what I mean. Here's an example of shooting frames.
The barn at Lukakasa has been converted into a restaurant serving traditional Norwegian food. Site has unique accommodation. Who stays there?
We have a lot of guests coming here to stay overnight, to sleep in the 3 barracks that we have, and do tasting and learn about the winemaking.
Tell us more about this unique form of accommodation.
It's a big barrel that has been used for red wine in Norway. You know, the Norwegian wine monopoly.
So here's an example of frames within frames.
Barrels,
the windows,
liters, and now it's a small
the windows of the barrel, for example.
Cozy one.
So what inspired you to...
Another way of using frames is to shoot the viewfinder of other people's video cameras. This is an example of a video I did about an olive tree more than 2,000 years old. And again, I'll scrub through to show you an example of filming frames within frames.
Because of its shape and age, the tree has become something of a media star.
So you can see there that I got down on the ground and filmed the people through the natural frame formed by the very old tree and the brick supports. Another interesting way is to note the wind movement of things like wind, leaves, grass, and get that beautiful image of the wind blowing across the flowers or the leaves. It's possible to video people, shoot people through the flowers. So you might shoot an image of people through the flowers or the bushes or the vines. Another way I've used was shooting a sunset through a wine glass at this particular story. I'm really sorry, this is very slow loading for some reason. I have a very fast network, and I don't know why this is so slow. So there's an example of filming a sunset through a wine glass. The point to all this is that you have to improvise on location. I can't give you rules. All I can do is give you suggestions on how you might find innovative or creative ways to film when you're on location. And another thing I like to use are textures and patterns for things like rusting iron, blistering old paint, tree bark, brickwork, pebbles, rocks. They all give you a nice sense of texture. Water and mirrors also give you a really interesting imagery. So the movement of water will give you life and movement to your story. Also, I like to sometimes film people reflected in mirrors or windows or water or puddles of water after rain. So an example is from this video I did about the composer Grieg in Norway. Another trick you can use is to create filters wherever you are. So filming through a thin piece of silk, for example, or filming a sun through the leaf of a tree, using the grid or holes in the back of the chair to film something, using a device like a sieve. A sieve, as you can see, there is something I use when I'm baking. You filter the flour for baking through the sieve to break it up. If you hold that sieve up in front of somebody's face, it will give you interesting shots of those people. So what I mean here is, on location, you're using a filter as best you can, just using the resources that are around you. If you don't have a dolly to do a tracking shot, you can sit in a chair with wheels on it, and someone can push the chair, and that will give you that same sensation of movement. It's all based on finding what's available to you wherever you are on location, which comes back in a way to planning. Planning is really important with Mojo Stories, because you're on your own, because you are a single operator. You really need to plan as much as possible. Another way of getting interesting images is through reflections, shadows, contrasts. Look for way that light bounces off buildings or different surfaces. Use light and shadow for contrast. You're trying to find ways to focus the viewer's attention. So here's an example from a still from a movie. where the eyes automatically focused on the candles because of the contrast of light and dark. You can also do things what I call visual metaphors. This is where you're trying to take an abstract concept. In this case, it might be depression or joy, and finding a way to make it visual. In the case here, we put the smartphone in a plastic bag and filmed by the seashore. And the notion of
depression is like drowning in the ocean. Drowning in the ocean. You're stuck in its dark blue depths. Every time your head pops above the waves, another one comes crashing in. Even if you think you've gotten out, the ocean is still there, just a few steps away.
So an example of a visual metaphor, finding a way to express an abstract concept with video. Also, look for unusual angles when you're filming. Try to avoid static locked camera and use the mobility angle of the fact that it's a mobile phone, and think unusual angles. Play with the horizon, for example, sometimes known as a Dutch angle. So that's one way of filming. Tilt the camera 5 degrees one way or another, and you get quite a different feel just by literally tilting your camera slightly. You also need to be able to listen. So when you're in the field, you record unusual or distinctive sounds, which could be useful in a video. So I was filming in the streets of Lisbon some years ago, and again, I apologize, this is so slow in loading. And also look around you. Look for opportunities to capture unusual images and unusual audio. So here's an example from Pushkar in India. I was having a cup of tea by the lake, and I noticed some people playing music. I also advocate filming sequences to save time. What I mean by a sequence is that rather than having individual shots where you set up your camera, take a piece of footage, move the camera, take another piece of footage, they are individual shots. A sequence is when you move your body, you move yourself to get the sequence. The best way to explain this is to use an example. I mentioned that Ivo Burum and I have written a book called Mojo. The advantage we have is that there are 13 videos associated with the book. And here is an example of Ivo talking about filming sequences.
G'day, my name's Evo, and in this video we're going to learn how to cover an unfolding event. not as a series of individual shots, but more as a sequence. I've heard it said that we should consider the 5-shot rule when we're actually covering something. I guess that's a close-up of what we're seeing, a close-up of who's doing it, a wider relational shot to show where it is, maybe a point of view shot, maybe also a special shot. That's one way of doing it. But in the 30 years that I've been doing this, I've never found that there's enough time to do that with an unfolding event. In fact, you can generally do that and prepare that and plan that in a documentary or a drama or a corporate, but not at the scene of an accident or a news event, where you're better off treating it as a sequence and covering the event as a sequence. If you cover it as a sequence, a number of things will happen. One is that you'll be in the story, more in the story, covering the story. Two is you won't slow the actuality, the unfolding event down, and the policeman or the ambulance driver or whoever won't kick you off the scene. And thirdly is you will end up with more shots. Like magic almost. Hard to believe, but it's true. So I'll show you how to do that. But the first thing we have to do is to make sure that our subject, which is Claire today, is lit properly. Now, in this case, I'm standing on this side looking out into a big window, and that's not the right thing to do, because in a big window, the exposure is going to be all wrong and Claire is going to be dark. So we don't want that. So the best thing for us to do, unless we've got a light where we can light Claire to match the outside exposure, is to walk around the other side. Now, over here, I'm on the same side as the light. So there's the light, and here's me, and there's the subject. So over here, as you can see, I've got absolutely no problems with my exposure at all. So this is where we do it from. It's not as nice a shot as looking out in that beautiful garden, but because you're working fast and because we don't want to slow things down, we actually try and shoot the way the light is moving. So the light's coming from here to here, and that's the way that we'll shoot. So the light's on the subject and we're looking the same way. So here goes. What we're going to do, we're going to shoot 3 shots. But we're not going to shoot them as shots. We're going to shoot them as a sequence. We're not going to stop and save each shot. And we're going to shoot a close-up, which shows us what we're doing, close-up of the iPhone. We're going to shoot a shot of Claire's face, which shows us who's doing that. We're going to then shoot a wider shot, a relational shot, which relates the iPhone to the person and to the space. Okay? So there's the story. We've covered the story. This is being done, this is who's doing it, and this is where it's being done. If we ask Claire why she's doing this, we'll get an answer, which will be another one of the 5 W's. And then if I write a little voiceover, we might get the 5th W, which is the when. So we might answer our 5 W's just in this little sequence. Okay, so let's see how this goes. So we start filming now, and we do a few seconds of that. We then move up gently. We see who's doing it. A few seconds of that. And then we move out here and we see a relational shot between Claire and the device. And Claire, why are you doing this?
I want to win the $10,000 first prize so that I can pay for my next year of uni.
So it's really that simple. That's how you cover a sequence. And as I said, 1, 2, 3 shots, but if you run it as a sequence, you can use a little bit of that one with the move up, that gives you a 4th shot, and a little bit of that one with the move out, that gives you a 5th shot, or use the whole lot as a sequence, that gives you a 6th shot. So twice as many shots if it's covered as a sequence, and also we haven't slowed Claire down at all, right? So let's see what that looks like. If I add a voiceover to it, we'll see if we can make a little story out of that. So there it is. We've added shots. We've added the wide shot. There's a close-up there, close-up of Claire, and I've included the voiceover underneath that to give it some context and to give us the when, some music, and Claire's little piece to camera about why she's doing it and her name super. And underneath all that, we've put some music. Let's have a look at what that all looks and sounds like. Here we go.
Every year, the Go Mojo National Smartphone Competition has people like Claire from all over Australia practicing their digital storytelling skills.
I want to win the $10,000 first prize so that I can pay for my next year of uni.
So that's how you cover a sequence, and that's how you edit it together on a smartphone with a little bit of voiceover, a bit of music, a name super, and you've got a complete package. We'll teach you how to make those packages and turn them into user-generated stories in the upcoming videos.
So we film in sequences to save time, and we also aim to edit in sequences, again, to save time. So here's an example from the great movie Fargo by the Coen brothers. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 shots that tell the story in about 8 seconds. So we begin with an extreme long shot. You'll have to imagine there's the whistling of the wind and the snow, and then we have a long shot of someone struggling in the snow, and they have a medium long shot of an overturned car, and it also introduces our main character, and then we have a medium shot with the body in the background. So in the space of about 8 seconds, we've told a story as a sequence. So sequences are really, really powerful ways to tell Mojo stories. And I repeat, it's all in how we do the filming. So the rule is we shoot to edit. So how many shots do you need for, say, a 1 minute, 1 minute 10, 1 minute 20-second news video? Well, I work on a ratio of roughly 1 to 8 to 16. So you only need 1 or 2 long shots, mostly to establish the scene. That's really what long shots are used for. About 6 to 8 medium shots. So these shots are taken from different angles. So they're all medium shots, but you're moving around the subject to get different angles of those medium shots. And then about 16, about double that number of close-ups for detail. Now, the reason for detail is that detail fills in the gaps. It's in terms of the language of video, Mojo is quite an intimate way of telling stories. So you're using a lot more close-ups with Mojo work than you would with a traditional big TV camera or movie camera. Some other little tricks I like to use. I put my finger over the lens, turn off the flash, and record variations of different dark red colors, which I can use as background for any text I want to use in the story. I'm getting some more feedback. Would people please mute their microphone? Mojo invariably involves doing interviews. I'm sorry, if someone's talking to me, I can't hear. It's all distorted. Okay, I'll continue. So interviews are always part of news packages, pretty much. Finding the best location for your interview is very, very important. Furnishings, ways to make sure the camera is balanced. You don't have a tripod, and you want sort of background action happening in interviews to Mojo. I think it gives it more life. So you're all familiar with the notion of energy points, I'm sure. So if you do a tic-tac, will find you talking. Would you please mute your microphone? I'm getting an awful lot of feedback, and it's very irritating. If we look at our typical screen and draw a tic-tac-toe grid over it, there's 4 red X's, what I call energy points. And ideally, we position the interviewee on either that left vertical or I'm getting an awful lot of feedback. I can hear it in my thoughts. Well, you can see there are two ways of positioning a person, both on the vertical axis, but the position of the shot is very important. I think you'll agree with me that the lower image looks better than the upper image because of the fact that it's on the right vertical axis. The upper image would look fine if the person was on the left vertical axis.
Well, it exceeded my expectations.
I'm going to mute this and play. The point in filming down the corridor is so you have some action happening in the background. I think it makes it more real to the audience rather than putting somebody against a white wall. I think interviewing people against walls is a real no-no. I think they look so much better with some action happening in the background. So avoid interviews against walls. If you have to, make sure you've got at least a meter of space between the subject and the wall, because this is what happens when you put a person too close to a wall. So you don't need to hear him talk. This is a man I interviewed who'd written a book about writing humor. He's a comic, and the problem is because he's flat against the wall, his head looks distorted. It looks unusually large, and in fact, he phoned me after he saw the interview and complained that I'd done him an injustice. So I learned my lesson there. I've never done an interview against a wall ever again. So please do not put people against walls when you interview them. The other problem, as you can see from this piece of video, and again I've killed the sound, is that when you get too close, you can see how the bookcase has been distorted and it looks as though the verticals of the bookcase are curved. So be very careful when doing interviews. Getting the positioning correct is really important. Also, be very careful when you're filming inside. If you're filming under fluorescent lights, notice I'm giving you all the examples of what not to do based on my dreadful experience of these things. So this is what happens when you film someone under vertical lights. Look at the color of her skin. She looks really, really weird. So please be very, very careful with filming with fluorescent lights. As much as possible, use a gimbal, a stabilizer, and come almost near the end because wobbly camera is really not acceptable. If you're interested, check out the tutorials by a man called Richard Lackey on his website and YouTube site. He has a really excellent tutorial on how to film cinematic style video with an iPhone using the Filmic Pro app. And you'll see, actually I won't, I'll go to his website, that's easier. Here is his website, richardlackey.com, and then you go to his tutorials. The website I use for teaching Christiania might be useful to you. It's a very large site. So there are the various lessons. So what you're getting is part of the creative filming section of lesson 3, and there are 11 lessons. So if you're interested in learning more about interviewing or editing or sound effects or narration, you can go to my website that you can see there. I really apologize for the technical glitches. I thank you for listening. There are my contact details if you would like to reach me, but I very much would like a chance to talk to people rather than my giving you a long lecture. So I'm going to stop the share and come back. Right, I'm really sorry about those technical glitches. I think in future, if I do this again, I think it's best to record the video beforehand and play it out, because there are too many unknowns when it comes to Zoom and the internet. But thank you for listening. I really appreciate this opportunity. Does anybody have any questions or anything I wasn't clear about? And I do apologize for going through that so very quickly.
Not at all, sir. It was our pleasure that we have you here, and it was a very enlightening session, I must say, because there are so many things that I have learned sitting here and attending the class. The lighting, the framing, and how you can improvise your framing sense, and how you can use the props around you. Because when you're on the field, you don't know what to expect. So use the unexpected one and use it at your advantage. So yes, we have a couple of questions here. And first, and I would like to ask you, so one of our participants asked you, dear sir, in your opinion, what is the future of mobile filmmaking?
Okay, do you mean mobile for television, or do you mean mobile for making movies and things like that? Because I think they're quite separate.
They're quite different, but I think he focused on basically on how to make films and what is the future of mobile filmmaking. Like he's focused on more the creative side of filmmaking, not the mojo.
I made 2 short movies, one of 8 minutes, one of 12.5 minutes. We had this thing called lockdown where we are, and I'm happy to put details in the chat box later. I think the potential for mobiles is huge. I could talk for an hour on this alone. I'll be as brief as I can. It's very difficult if you're young and inexperienced to break into movie making. Really difficult. In my country, we had a recent opening for 12 places with a training course. 12 places available with Channel 4. We got 3,800 applications. And this is in a country with a much smaller population than Bangladesh. So getting in is difficult. The advantage of the mobile phone is that you can do it. So these 2 movies I made, I wrote the script myself. I shot the film on my mobile phone, and this is the kit I used. So a tripod, a monopod on a tripod, a frame where the mobile phone is locked in, and a Rode wireless mic. So relatively inexpensive, and we shot both movies in one day, and then used, because they're iPhones, I then used what's called AirDrop to transfer the video onto an iPad, where I did the editing, because there's just more space on the screen. I find it difficult to edit on a tiny screen because my hands are so big. So it's possible for one person to make movies now. You could not have done that 10 years ago. The cost of the equipment alone would have been too much. But the cameras on the mobile phone, the editing apps that are available now, it's possible for you to be a 1 or 2 person production house shooting movies with this relatively inexpensive equipment.
Thank you. I think
I could talk about this for a long time, so I had to restrain myself.
I think the following question is a following one, because the person he is asking, the quality of mobile phone camera and the video camera isn't the same. How can we get better output from a mobile phone? Because if you think about iPhone, that's quite expensive because everyone can't afford that. So how you can get a better output?
Yeah. I think it's from the iPhone 7 onwards, it's been possible to shoot in 4K. So I film in 4K.
Hello? Wait.
Oh, I'm extremely sorry.
It's okay. Yeah.
It doesn't matter how many times you give them instructions, somehow someone will miss that. So, sorry for this.
It's all right. I was young once, I remember. I think from the iPhone 7 onwards, it's possible to shoot in 4K. The issue is, of course, the files are very large. But when I film, when I make my movies, I shoot in 4K. And if I get someone to do their own filming, so if I ask someone to interview somebody or film themselves at home, as we did during the lockdown, because it was not possible for me to go to them to film, I still got people to film in 4K, because it's possible then to get very clean images. As I said, I'll put links to my movies in the chat, and you can see how good the video is shot on 4K, really good quality. And that means that when you come to edit, you can crop the imagery. So if you've got bad footage, it's possible to then zoom in and crop and still get at least 1080p quality video output. So sure, people will complain. They'll say that camera is not as good as whatever, but it's possible to make pretty good stuff with the equipment available nowadays. You could not have done it 10 years ago.
That's true. That's undoubtedly true. So my next question is how technology is boosting our creativity, because we are talking about unleashing our creativity today. Okay. And what methods from various innovation or anywhere are to help people tap into that well and tap into that well-being of position ideas? Okay, I'm a bit confused with the question right now. So I think basically what he wanted to ask that is how technology is boosting our creativity and what methods from various innovation we can use to unleash our creativity or improvise it.
Sure. Yeah. First of all, technology is not boosting creativity. That's a pencil, yeah? That's a piece of technology. I use it to write my notes. That's a piece of technology. I use it to make phone calls and shoot video. What's important is the hands that control the pencil. Yeah, it's just a pencil. It's just a tool, technology tool. That's all they are. What's important is the hands and the brain that controls the hands. So that comes down to a combination of education and training, learning stuff, practicing till you use the equipment so easily that it's second nature, it's part of you. And third thing is, and this is what I tried to, the great discovery I made, which I discovered very late in life, sadly, is that without relaxation, tension kills creativity. Yeah. And the problem is with a lot of technology, people think of technology as being unfriendly and they seize up. So you've got to find ways to relax with technology, make it your friend. So it's not about the technology, it's about the brain. And it's about relaxing the brain to the point where you can be creative.
And you have taught us some techniques, and I was trying to do that, but I think my both skills are not aligned together. So yes, I will try to practice that. I don't want to embarrass myself right now.
Practice. I couldn't do it at first, but what it means is, as long if you look at the human body and draw a line down the middle, it's like two mirrored halves, and because the right hemisphere controls my left hand, and my left hemisphere controls my controls my right hand, you need to find ways of getting both hemispheres working together. That means getting activity between the two hemispheres. So where my wrists join is the corpus callosum I told you about. So you need to do exercises that involve crossing the midpoint. I don't know if I can show you this. If you watch tennis players, they will take their racket in one hand and they will tap their other. If it's in my right hand, they'll tap their left foot. They'll swing back and put the racket in their left hand and tap their right foot. What it's doing is crossing the midpoint and getting a connection between the two hemispheres. Because true creativity is a whole brain activity, not one or the other. So you've ways of, and that's where this thing called educational kinesiology or brain gym is so important. If you have children, one of the things you need to teach them about is brain gym, because it enhances their creativity, because it involves exercising that crosses the midpoint of the body. Doing star jumps is lovely in exercise, but it doesn't cross the midpoint. Yeah? So
yes, because you need to make that balance from both sides.
That in fact is the key word, Sita. That's the key word, balance. Yeah. When your both hemispheres are working, you are a more balanced human being. And generally, balance is a very positive term. We want to be balanced. So you've got to find ways of being balanced, and you've got to find ways of using breathing. I'm not breathing properly at the moment, frustrated by the technology. Breathing is a way to get your brain, remember 20% your brain, which is only tiny, 2% of your body weight, needs at least 20% of the oxygen that you take in. So you need to breathe. Deep breathing is so useful. You watch actors before they go on the stage. They're doing these techniques to relax themselves, because they know the more relaxed they are, the better they settle into their role, into their job.
Yes, and I was reading once that the Marines, they also do it. They call it a square. Like they count 1, 2, 3, 4. They breathe in, they hold the breath for 4 seconds, and then they leave it for 4 seconds, and then they wait for 4 seconds more. It's like a square. Yes. And it really helps. It really helps. Yeah. Okay, but I think this is a very interesting question. Sir, do you think there will be a category for mobile phone films at film festivals like Oscar or Golden Globe?
At the moment, there are many. I've entered some of my movies in film festivals recently. I didn't realize how many film festivals there are on the planet. Increasingly, you are getting film festivals that only have movies made with a mobile phone. There was one in Pakistan late last year. The name will come to me in a moment.
Our one is the same thing, sir.
Yeah,
yes, completely based on the mobile phone.
Yeah. It was the Dublin Yeah. Writer's block's nice if you've got a separate source of income. You can say, I've got writer's block. But if you're someone who's producing something like for a daily news program, you don't get writer's. There's no time to get writer's block. You just get on with the job. Yeah, I really have no time for the concept of writer's block.
I think that's a luxury for someone. But when you have to serve the food on the table, I think we don't have that time to ponder on the writer's block.
Yeah. I mean, there are ways of freeing your creativity. And I go back to techniques like brain gym and deep meditation. Meditation, I've only started meditating daily recently in my life, and I didn't realize what a great thing it is for freeing up your brain. There are taking a walk in nature is a great way of freeing up yourself. Deep breathing. There are lots of techniques. You have to find the method, the technique that works for you. In my case, it's walking in nature. I'm lucky I live near the ocean, so I can take a daily walk and listen to the seagulls and smell the ocean. Yeah, connecting with nature is another great way of freeing up your creativity. But you've got to find ways of relaxing. I repeat, tension kills creativity. You've got to find ways of relaxing your brain to allow the juices to flow, to break through this writer's block if you've got it.
I think we are done for today, sir. It was wonderful having you on this platform, and it is an honor to be the moderator of this class. And there's so many things that I have learned today, and I think all our participants, they have enriched their knowledge.
Thank you. I really appreciate your kind words, and thank you for the opportunity.
I would say a couple of words, if you allow me. Hello, Professor Dr. Quinn. This is Dr. Jamil.
Yes, I have.
Miss Ma'am, can I say a couple of words?
Yes, sir. The floor is yours.
All right. Thank you. First of all, I would like to congratulate to all the participants who have joined here from different parts of the world. It's been amazing to bring all of you under the platform of DIMFF. And also thank you to our honorable guest, Dr. Stephen Quinn, who had joined us from UK. I can remember when I requested him to take part in our masterclass, he just welcomed and said, definitely I will join. So thank you, sir, for being with us and provide all the supports for Dhaka International Mobile Film Festival. And I know you for many years, and especially I am a big fan of you, especially when I got your book, Mojo for the Asian region, which is one of the first books of mobile journalism. So thank you also for providing those valuable resources. And you are also an idol for many, aspiring journalists. So thank you for that.
You're most welcome. Thank you again for the opportunity.
So thank you everyone for joining our today's session. It was wonderful having Professor Stephen Quinn with us, and we have learned a lot from you, and hope to see you again and invite you on our platform.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, and enjoy your next test match.
It's sunny here. I'm going for a walk. I need some oxygen for my brain. Take care. Thanks again.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Yeah, bye-bye.